Hello, you're very welcome to my Irish double O gauge layout Clogherhead, which is a fictional coastal terminus in County Louth on the Great Northern Railway of Ireland. It's a DCC layout and it runs a variety of stock, some steam, some diesel. And I thought in this video I would take a closer look at one of the types of model that run on the layout, and that is the A-class diesel, which was released by Irish Railway Models back in 2021. Now, I don't do Irish model railway reviews because I don't consider myself knowledgeable enough to do that. But what I am going to do in this video is offer a little personal appreciation of the model. And by the time I'm done, hopefully you'll agree with me that it is very definitely a class act.
The history of the Irish A-class locomotives has been covered in great detail elsewhere, so I won't dwell on it here. But very briefly, they were a class of 60 diesel-electric locomotives which were built in England and introduced to the railway lines of CIE in the Irish Republic in 1955 to 56. When they first arrived, they wore this very futuristic-looking silver livery which didn't cope very well with the ravages of the Irish weather, so it was quickly changed. The locomotives wore a great variety of liveries throughout their long career of 40 years, finishing with this striking black and orange colour scheme with white stripes, often called the Tipex livery. Note that in the early 1970s the letter A was dropped from the locomotives and they were instead numbered in the series 001 to 060. It was around the time of the Tipex livery during the late 1980s that I started to make an effort to record the Irish railway scene as I saw it, and I found myself in Sligo in February 1988 photographing 035 as it arrived with the service from Dublin. The following year, I was photographing trains at my home station of Finaghy outside Belfast, and what appears to be Loco 016 has just left Adelaide with the 1515 freight working for the south. The locomotive is still wearing the penultimate livery that the class carried, which was known as the Super Train livery, although this had largely been replaced by the Tipex scheme by this time. Thankfully, a better quality photo here as 049 is seen at Dundalk in October 1992. This was the occasion of the Gate Opener rail tour when a passenger train entered the new York Gate station in Belfast for the first time and visited other points as well, including Dundalk. Finally, it's September 1993 and I am at Little Island on the Cove Line in County Cork as 055 passes with a train of ammonia wagons for Merino Point. This locomotive is one of the small number of preserved examples, and later she found quite a unique home as it was incorporated into the Hell's Kitchen restaurant in Castlereagh, County Roscommon. Currently there is only one A-class locomotive operating in preservation, A39R, which is owned and maintained by the Irish Traction Group, who do great work preserving historic Irish diesel locomotives. A39R has received the very attractive black and tan livery from the early 1970s, and she is seen here operating on the Downpatrick and County Down Railway, which is currently the only operating preserved standard gauge line in the whole of Ireland, and well worth a visit. The model was announced by Irish Railway Models back in 2018, and this immediately created a frenzy of excitement among those of us who model the Irish railway scene, particularly when we looked at the proposed specifications of the model. IRM were very good at keeping us up to date with the progress of the project, and the CAD images were simply mouthwatering. Then we were very pleased to see this superb illustration from IRM, which listed the locomotives they were planning to release, showing their liveries, and I for one found this invaluable when deciding which models to pre-order. It's important to remember that the production of the A-Class model coincided with the global pandemic, so there were a few project delays along the way, but again, the IRM team were very good at keeping us informed, and the models were released to great acclaim in late 2021. These very striking green boxes arrived with us, and they immediately created an impression of quality and attention to detail. Unboxing videos have become popular amongst online model railway reviewers, but they aren't everyone's cup of tea. Some friends of mine hate them and would ideally like them to run like this. However, I think it's worthwhile remembering how sturdy the boxes are and the level of thought that went into their design. So here's a very quick reminder. Thankfully, the models didn't come with an overload of paperwork, but one thing that was provided was this superb booklet with its attractive vintage cover and period illustrations, along with the very readable history of the locomotives and the recollections of Tom Ryan, who drove the A-Class during his railway career. Great stuff. I had planned to buy just one of the A-Class models, but the temptation was too great and their quality overpowered me pretty quickly, so I soon ended up with more. I currently have A30 in the original silver livery, A46 in the gorgeous dark green livery, and A15 in the iconic black and tan livery. I became a big fan of this livery, so I was delighted when IRM surprised us with a special limited edition release of A3R in black and tan with a matching box. Proceeds from the sale of this model have supported the work of the Irish Traction Group as they maintain and restore their collection of historic diesel locomotives, and each model came with a limited edition certificate. Note that A3R represents the locomotives after they had been rebuilt between 1968 and 1971, principally to replace their original Crossley engines which had become unreliable. The whole class received new engines which came from the Electromotive Division, or EMD, of General Motors in the USA, and this immediately transformed the A-Class into solid and reliable workhorses. Once the locomotive had been rebuilt, it received the suffix R for re-engined. The most obvious difference between the original and rebuilt locomotives is the high-level headlight cluster on the rebuilt locomotives, as well as a number of roof differences too. All of these details have, of course, been faithfully reproduced on the IRM models. A very desirable inclusion in the first run of the IRM A-Class was this special limited edition model of the class Pioneer locomotive A1 in original silver livery and presented in a very attractive wooden box, also with a limited edition certificate. Every livery carried by the A-Class in service was represented by the IRM models, and not surprisingly, the complete run sold out within a few months, although second-hand examples do occasionally appear for sale online. So what about performance? Well, it wasn't a huge surprise to discover that the models perform flawlessly. Clogherhead is a short end-to-end shunting type layout, so I don't currently have an opportunity to let my A-Class team stretch their legs, but a feature I do very much enjoy is the crawl, which is very impressive, as you can see here, and this is still only the lowest speed step on the digital controller. The locomotives crawl effortlessly across this ancient Pico double slip at the station throat. Other locomotives can sometimes stumble here, but the A-Class more or less just ignore it. The models were designed to make fitting a DCC chip easy, and all you have to do is remove this panel in the roof, which is very neatly held on by magnets, and this gives very easy access to the DCC socket. This is the digital chip here, and these are the two speakers for the digital sounds, and these are the capacitors. This is a neat bit of tech where power is stored and used in the event of a brief power interruption, such as on a stretch of dirty track. There's a good 5 seconds of power available here. I'm still just learning all the functionality of DCC, but here's where I've got to. A run through of all the digital lighting and sound functions that I use most often. Here's a possibly less familiar function, the engine room lighting. Note the very helpful seagull showing us where to look. A popular DCC light function is the cab lighting, which allows the operator to view the extensive cab detail inside the models. There seems to be a bit of a glitch, however, with my sound chips. If I turn on the cab lights in A3R, which has a sound chip, the marker lights immediately extinguish, and vice versa. But if I bring in A15, which has a standard chip, the problem doesn't occur. Perhaps I'm doing something wrong and there's an easy fix. So if anyone can help me here, please feel free to comment. I mentioned earlier how all the A-class locomotives were re-engined between 1968 and 1971 to replace their original and by then unreliable Crossley engines with EMD engines. IRM conducted extensive research and were able to source suitable engine sounds so both our original Crossley and our EMD models can sound authentic. Here's the Crossley startup sound. And the EMD startup sound. The EMD sound is a bit different. It sounds a bit smoother and has less of a thump. Just another example of how IRM have gone to great lengths to provide us with a totally authentic A-class experience. Finally, here's something I've spotted that I haven't seen mentioned anywhere. There are 5 different whistle sounds.
thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly enjoyed taking a look at the fabulous IRM A-class locomotives again. And a big word of thanks to the team at IRM for all the work that went into bringing such a fabulous model to us, and indeed for all the work that is ongoing to bring more fabulous models to us in the future. Personally, I'm very excited about what will be the second locomotive release from IRM, which is the also iconic Hunslet diesel locomotive, hopefully later on this year. The prototype would be one that I would be particularly familiar with because they spent most of their time up here in my part of the world in and around Belfast. So very much looking forward to that one. So I thought it would be nice to finish off this video with a few more scenes of my A-class team in action on Clogherhead, and look out for a kind of an atmospheric scene towards the very end. So again, thanks for watching, and if you're not too busy, you could give me a like and maybe a subscribe as well. Much appreciated. Thanks.